Bruins Beat is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And we're presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I think I'm going to need a couple of different coffees today because I'm a little sleepy.
A little sleepy, I got to say. So Thursday's game against the Kraken, 5-1 loss. Great stuff. We'll get into that. But I got it. So for the third period, I'm like, you know what? This is normally when I go to bed anyway. I always, I watch like Netflix before I go to bed or HBO. It's funny. My parents growing up were always like, no, don't use your phone before bed. You'll sleep better, this and that. I can like only sleep if I watch YouTube or Netflix or HBO or like just a show before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Like I need something to watch to like wind down. And
I'm like Tim Robinson on the couch. That's me like before I go to bed.
Or like, do you ever you'll have your phone above you as you're like, I'll be watching something in bed and I'll start to fall asleep and then the phone will just fall and hit me in the face.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I got in bed on what? Continue.
Yes. No. You go. I've been cutting.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say I got in bed on Thursday night and said, all right, I'll watch the third period in bed. It's comfortable, like this and that. My eyes I can feel my eyes like shutting. Like somewhere in the middle of the third period, and I'm like, no, come on, stay awake. Like, just stay awake for it's like, 10 minutes. Just stay awake. And next thing I know, like I like kind of come to, and they're recapping the game, and they're doing the postgame. And I'm like, why are they at the desk? Like, we're midway through the third. What can Billy and Racer like shut up for 2 seconds? Like, the game's happening. And then I looked at the time, and it was like 1. And I was like, it hit me. I was like, I fell asleep for the rest of the third period. And then I went.
You didn't miss much.
I went to look at the score and I was like, oh, they scored, I think, 1 or 2 more goals after I fell asleep. So that sums it up. I think that sums up that game. And it kind of sums up the season. Just like snoozer.
Bad hockey. It's like it's frustrating, right? Because yes, you look at the schedule they had during this recent stretch where they win, 4 in a row. And you're like, they're playing tomato can teams, which is true. But you looked at the way they won those games and how I think focused they were on having a game plan, sticking to their identity. You saw that, and what we mentioned before this road trip was like, all right, if you play that way, at the very least, even if you don't win every single one of these games, these should be 3-2 games, 2-1 games. Like if you play to that identity, and they just play bullshit hockey. That was bullshit hockey yesterday. Like, how do you get smoked on Tuesday in an uncompetitive game against Winnipeg, and then take a penalty 16 seconds into the game, go power play goal less than a minute in? Like, it's probably the best way. Let's make this be, Evan, the quickest podcast ever. Let's do the rare 4-minute podcast where it's like they're just playing bullshit hockey, and then we'll recap again. Because I don't know how you lose that game on Tuesday. You talk about having time to correct things, and then put yourself in a hole the rest of the game, starting a minute in. Like, it's falling into the same exact shit that this team was in before that makes you, when you look at just how they once again let the third period get away from them, they're swimming against the current, just to start the game with bad penalties, bad execution. They still can't score. Like, it's how else do you want to map it out other than just playing like dickheads? Like, it's literally that's the best way to put it.
They are. And games like the last 2 games, people thankfully love our post-game shows during the playoffs, and they're very fun to do. And some people say, where are those? Why don't you have those during the regular season? I know like the Celtics crew on CLNS, they do one, the Garden Report, and the Patriots do it. Games like like Thursday against Seattle, imagine doing a post-game show at like 12:30 after a 5-1 loss in Seattle. Like, what is there to really talk about? And you mentioned that start, and they take that penalty immediately. Bjorkstrand scores immediately on the power play. And then, the power play ends, and then just over 5 minutes in, McAvoy turns a puck over. Nice play by Shane Wright, keeps it in. And then Schwartz just kind of dekes out Korpisalo and backhands it over him. And, like, again, like, it's, and you hit it with, like, you get your doors blown off on Tuesday. Thursday's a good opportunity. Seattle's not like an elite team. I mean, they're
No.
middle of the pack. Their definition
No.
of mid. They're a mid team. And like that's a chance for you. And you come out like that. And that's why to me, like I keep going back to with this team, and we've said it over and over, and we talked about it on earlier this week on Poke the Bear. They're just a mid team. Like that's what it is. And they could change it. They could. It's up to them. But how do you look at this team and think anything else? Like, this is them. They have a really nice stretch after Sacco gets fired. They win 4 in a row, most recently. And then they go out west, and it's a completely different team. I think that's just them.
Yeah, I mean, like, just that overall stat is just not what you're looking for at all. Like, when they all preach the same thing, they're saying the right things, which, hell, they were saying the right things when they were getting smoked against bad teams during the last week of Montgomery being there. But, yeah, like, you take that penalty from Pastrnak, who, again, is not giving you much in terms of just whatever the issue with him is, whether it's injury or something. You're not getting anything from him. You're now in a hole. Like, early on in the game, you want to get all your lines rolling, get guys out there, kind of build off and have a clean slate in this game after what happened in Winnipeg. You're already in a hole less than a minute in because of that penalty. And then even after Bjorkstrand was the guy who scored, right?
First, yeah.
Yeah. So Bjorkstrand scored, and then obviously they have another 2 minutes, and then moving the puck around. They could have scored easily on that. I think someone had a shot off the crossbar or off the post too. Like, It's funny. Look at that power play compared to the Bruins, where it's like, hey, let's not use the bumper at all. Let's send the puck over to Pastrnak to get it blocked. Like, how much time and space and deliberate play the I almost said the Canucks, the Kraken had
Close
on
enough.
that power play. Yeah, close enough in terms of how I don't know if the Bruins even like flew. They should just walk to Vancouver, honestly, after that game. But
They should
but
walk.
honestly, but yeah, like you have that power play where they easily could have scored 2, and then I know it was technically a 5-on-5 goal from Schwartz, but all things considered was a power play because what do you know? Like Tyler Johnson gets into the game, takes an offensive zone penalty, they kill it off of once again another couple of quality chances, and then it's 5-6 seconds later where McAvoy again, instead of just forcing the puck out, tries to make a play. Forwards are up high, gets picked off. Shane Wright picks him off, and then pucks in the net 5 seconds later. And it just goes back to just bad execution, straying away from your game plan of simplifying things. And I think when you look at just this team of just how easily they're knocked off their game, like as soon as Schwartz goes high and beats Korpisalo there with that move, I'm like, all right, well, this game's over.
It's over. It's over. It's done. And they score, they score like the Marchand gets his penalty shot, scores, and it's like, okay. Like in any other time, you'd say, oh, great, Bruins are back in. That's 1 goal. This team, it's like, oh, that's their 1 goal. And then the other team's going to score like between 2 and 6 the rest of the game. And I like, again, you even look at just the beginning of this trip and you have the power play goal from Pastrnak, and then you have a penalty shot goal from Marchand on Thursday. And you can make the case that if Montour doesn't cover it with his hand, it goes straight in. Like, sure, I'll give you that. But even so, like the offense isn't there. And all the same stuff that got Montgomery fired, a lot of it is coming back. And that's why I say, like, at some point it's the roster. But then I also go back to like, yes, they overperformed in 22-23. And yes, they overperformed last year. And people kind of go, oh, well, water always finds its level. This is more than
should not be this bad. You should not be playing dog shit hockey like you've been in the last couple of games. Like that was a clown show. The execution at the start of that game.
It's a waste. Why even stay up for that? I mean, really, people have lives and everything, and stay up for that's ridiculous. But it's just deeper than just like, oh, Zaka's coming back to earth, Coyle, Frederick, Geeky. Like it's more than that. Just the dumb penalties. And I also just think this team is not mentally tough. They haven't shown us that they are. I mean, you consistently see it where we saw it against Winnipeg, where when it rains, it pours. And it has been that way the whole year. And you see the dumb penalties and just the kind of lazy turnovers and the lack of doing anything at 5-on-5 offensively or on the power play. I just, that game against Seattle, reinforced it. And again, they're in Vancouver Saturday. They have Calgary Tuesday, Edmonton Thursday. Like, this is a big stretch. Because again, as I said on Bruins Beat earlier this week, right? Like, this was a potentially season defining stretch where, like, if you kick ass on this trip, you're a near the top playoff team. You're going to be active at the deadline, things like that. And if you aren't, if it's the other direction, you're probably headed for a retool. Yes, there are 3 games left, but have they given you anything over the last 2 games to think that they're going to reverse course against Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton? No, they have not. They have not.
Nope.
So,
outscored 13-2, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Uncompetitive.
Terrible. I will say, Connor, I probably should have been doing some prize picks prior to Seattle's game. So then I would have stayed awake in the third period. And I highly recommend you do the same, because PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks, they put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Now, with the Bruins right now, I have a tough time saying doing more goals for one person or more points for one person, like a Marchand or a McAvoy or Pastrnak, because
3.5 shitty penalties per
PrizePicks lead to listen to us.
Penalties.
Do that. Please do that. Offensive zone penalties for the Bruins. Do that. But you can do other teams. You can do other games, other sports, or you want to stick with the Bruins, which I assume you do. You can do saves. You can do time on ice. You can do hits. So there are different ways to get creative with it, despite the fact that the Bruins cannot seem to score any goals. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus, because it's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, sign up today or download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. I will say though, Marchand maybe goal, like that's not a terrible pick. He's been scoring, so I'll give him that. That's one. That's the only one. But that's one.
Yeah.
That's one. I keep going back to, and we've talked about this a lot, and we'll talk about this on Poke the Bear, and we will talk about this a lot going forward. And I think we're pretty set in that this team is a definitely middle of the road team, borderline playoff team, although they don't play like it. I don't know how they're actually in the playoffs. I don't know how they're in the running because it's been so bad.
Teams are catching up. You had Toronto win, and you had Tampa Bay smoke whoever they were playing. So also teams are catching up. So this was a game that, when you look at the fact that the Kraken aren't your most formidable opponent on this road trip, and you had a lot of other teams win. I think Florida lost to Vancouver. Or was that? I'm not sure exactly, but I know Florida did lose. But Tampa and Toronto both did win.
4-0 to Vancouver.
So also, yeah, it's good. Now you're going into Vancouver and playing that team as well. But
the
teams that had games in hand on you, they're catching up. So as much as people look at the playoffs and where they're in it right now, play like this. No, a lot of teams that are more talented that execute and don't take shitty penalties and don't let the game get away from them a minute in, they're catching up on you. So
completely. And Tampa's the one. I mean, they're 1 point behind the Bruins, and they've played 4 less games. So again, so they're this mediocre, hot and cold team who will probably beat up on the bad teams at home. You think? At least they did the last couple weeks. And I see people saying, Don Sweeney needs to do something about this roster. And retooling, yes. But I think if you're talking like this team needs reinforcements, like go out and get a top 6 winger, like I'm not wasting assets on this team. I'm not. Now, if you want to go out and find, if something like Dylan Larkin pops up and you can have him long term and he's your number 1 center, then like fine. But if it's a rental piece to be in your middle 6 or just, we're past, I think we're past that, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not giving up a first round pick for any one of those players unless it's someone that is part of, like, again, as you said, like a legitimate retool that is not a over 30, It's like the Garrett Crochet kind of thing. Like someone like that who's 25. If you have someone like Lacken who's late 20s, right? I think he's still in his 20s.
I think he's 28.
Yeah, that you can put as part of your next kind of foundational piece. Yeah, maybe that is worth it in terms of relinquishing future assets. But yeah, I agree. In terms of rentals, and not to say that I don't think this team needs a shakeup where, that was mentioned right after Montgomery was fired of like maybe they just send off a guy as part of just a wake-up call, whether it's a Geeky, a Frederick, someone like that, which I think you have to assess now as being a viable thing in terms of firing another shot across the bow at this roster that is just underachieving across the board. But yeah, in terms of like, getting a proven top 6 wing, but it's a rental or someone like that. No, I'm not giving up a first round pick unless this team and this core, like one player is not going to all of a sudden be the difference. Like, let's say like a Tyler Toffoli. I know he signed on a contract for a while, but a player like that, him being on this team is not all of a sudden going to make them go 15-1-2 the next 7.
Nope.
Not if the rest of the team, not if the goaltending continues to underperform, not if the whole lineup takes shitty penalties, not if the power play can't hit the side of a bond, like not if any of these things happen. Like, yes, like more scoring will help you. And again, for some of these games, like the Vancouver game at home, maybe that makes a difference of like one scoring winger, a 20 goal scorer, even someone like that. Yeah, that would help. But you look at the bones of this roster and just how many guys aren't pulling their weight. No, I want to see what they have with this core that the Bruins management team thought was going to be enough going into this year. Like, I want to see them see if they can hold their own before you do any sort of investing in this team. Yeah, like, again, I don't think we're getting to the point now of like, all right, you got to sell the whole team, which seems to be the main sentiment of people on social media right now. I'm not tearing it all down, but sure shit aren't buying on this group, especially short-term investments when it means more first-round picks out the door. Like, nope, no thanks.
No, and that's the thing is that the few assets they have, future firsts, prospects they have, like, no, I'm not dealing those guys for rentals, and yeah, would like Tyler Toffoli is not going to be traded from the Sharks, but I know what you mean, like that, let's say it was Toffoli, like it helps you, but is Tyler Toffoli going to clean up your defensive zone issues, your goaltending issues, your penalty taking issues, your penalty killing issues? Like if your one issue was, oh man, we cannot score at 5-on-5, we need to go out and get someone, then that would make sense. It's like, okay, your goaltending is good, your everything else is good, you're smart, generally, like you're in the playoff picture, sure. It's a different, you have so many issues, and one or two players are not going to fix that, because I think what we're seeing now is this crew around your franchise, and your franchise pillars, by the way, in Swayman, McAvoy, and Pastrnak are not doing anything, but the guys around them aren't either. Yeah, the guys around them aren't either, and I think that's one of the key things in that. You can't really go out and deal a Swayman, a McAvoy, or a Pastrnak. That's when you get into bad ideas. But when you talk about guys around them, you get into Coyle and Geeky and Carlo and Frederick and all those guys that make up the world around them. We'll get to Elias Lindholm in a second. That's where I think you ask those questions of, is this group around this pillar, around these pillars, good enough? And I used to say yes, but I think we're seeing right now they are not. That is not the right crew. And that's to me, the point of this deadline, because everybody knows trade deadline is when you're going to get the most for these guys. I wonder who and what goes at the deadline.
Well, and that's also the issue, right? Is if this was last year, I mean, you wouldn't entertain moving any one of these guys because everyone's having great years. But also, if you're hit a point wherever you're like, just sell these guys, screw it. Their value is all at all-time lows. Like, what are you going to get? Like, what are you getting for, like, Frederick when he's playing like this? Like, you're hoping a team banks off of that blend of, potential scoring that he showed last year, but it's not been there this year. And, like, yeah, he's a physicality. Like,
why would a team pay up a ton for him right now when they know they can get him on a kind of bargain contract in the offseason if they really want him that bad?
Same thing as like a team that like looks at a guy like Charlie Coyle and is like, that's the 3C we need to bolster our team for the playoff run. Look at his numbers this year. You want to bring on a guy like that who's over 30 whose numbers aren't there. And I like all these players because we've seen over the last couple of years that they have the means to be effective key pieces on a playoff team. We saw it last year, right? But if you are hitting the point where you're doing a soft reset or what have you, kind of like the Capitals a few years ago, where it's like, all right, we don't have it. Orlov, Hathaway, like all these guys, are moving them out. Like, Orlov, when they traded him, had a good value of a legit top 4 guy, could do a little bit of everything. Hathaway had a skill set, was playing to his capabilities as to why he was so valued, I think, at that deadline. They had guys that immediately, like, looking back at that deadline, we looked at Hathaway's numbers, Orlov's numbers, are like, all right, top 4, fourth line stalwart, like these are what they got. This is what they needed.
Stanley Cup inbound.
If you're a team that like is trading for one of these guys like Coyle or Frederick, are you looking at their numbers this year and being like, this is what they need? No, you're probably looking at last year and being like, well, we know what he can do, which is probably why we only gave up a third and a fourth. Like the returns aren't going to be what you're looking for. It makes it a shit situation all around if you're the Bruins. That's why I don't think they're going to, at least for now, entertain like tearing it all down or anything like that. Because I just don't think, even if that is the right move, and that's something we don't want to admit, that this team just doesn't have it. I also don't know how much you're going to get out of selling off a lot of guys when their value is in the toilet right now. Like that's kind of where you're at.
That would be like if you said, you know what? I need to completely redo and revamp my stock portfolio. And it's like November of 2008. Like,
yes.
This is not the time. I know what you mean. This is not the time to sell off everything and be like, we're going to restart everything right now with the assets that we have. I want to keep getting into this because there's one person, I mean, there's a lot of people, but there's one person who's really underperforming. But first, if you want to go to the game, go to our friends over at GameTime, because there's nothing like watching an event live. Yes, it is fun sometimes to watch it in bed. I agree. Or watch it, on your couch. Everybody loves that. But you know what? Nothing beats actually just being there in person and experiencing the crowd, the energy in the building, the sounds on the ice. It hits different. It's hard to explain. And the coolest part is when the people around you become your best friends, or maybe they become your enemies and you get some anger out. You can make these memories with GameTime. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. When I use GameTime, I'm a big fan of the flash deals. I am fortunate. I live in Boston, so I'm near Fenway. I'm kind of near the Garden. So if I'm like, flash deals looking pretty damn good tonight, and I got nothing going on, I'll go to the game.
Crochet's on the mound?
Yeah, woo. Why not? Woo. Exactly. Juan Soto. Never mind.
Damn it, Evan.
Too soon. Maybe Juan Soto's at the dish for the Mets. There you go. Yeah. Crochet versus Soto. Crochet strikes him out. And I was there because of GameTime's flash deals. And then the seat views are awesome too. So I know where I'm sitting and what my view is going to be like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Connor, what time is it?
Game time.
It's game time. It is game time. So we were, you and Ty were texting yesterday. We were all texting. I don't want to make it sound like I hacked your phone and saw your text with Ty.
Yeah. All right, fucking Rupert Murdoch. Jesus.
We're doing a lot of 08 stuff here, aren't we? Okay, John McCain.
Yes.
Getting all into it. David Pastrnak, first on the Bruins with 28 points. Brad Marchand, second on the Bruins with 23 points. By the way, both well under point per game rates. Third is Justin Brazeau with 14 points in 29 games. You know who's fourth? Or tied for fourth because they're together. Elias Lindholm, 13 points. Pavel Zacha, 13 points. Elias Lindholm has 3 goals. Had 2 in his first 3 games too. So it's 1 in his last 29 or 28 games, which is absurd. Mm-hmm. It is incredible. And I think this there's a lot of defining stats for this Bruins team, but the fact that Elias Lindholm, who you went out and signed for almost $8 million per for the next 7 years, who you expected to be your number 1 center, is struggling this much offensively and is still your 4th highest point getter. That I can't get over that. Like, that says it all. That says it all, how bad and how underperforming and everything this team is right now. And Lindholm especially, like, dude, at some point, you've got to get it together. Like that, and they don't go near him on the power play either. Like, they don't touch him in the bumper.
Which is wild.
I don't know what you do about this, because we talked about this a lot in the summer of like, okay, we understand that in years 4, 5, 6 of that contract, he might be a number 2 center and whatever. I mean, he's a number 3. What is the difference between him and Charlie Coyle right now? There's not a heck of a lot of difference.
He's making more money.
That's the big difference. That is the big difference.
I mean, so you said he has 13 points, right? 13 points on the year?
Yep.
Yeah. Jake DeBrusk has 14 goals. So I don't know. But, I know people didn't like him because, sometimes they thought he wasn't engaged, even though he was the only guy who skated in the playoffs. But I digress there. But no, you need more. And listen, like we've talked about it a lot of times. I like the details. I like that. I think he's more physical than you expected. I think he had 6 hits in 7 minutes yesterday. But
then he got hurt.
And he's hurt. That's also, we should preface it. We don't know. He didn't finish the game, played about 7 minutes, which makes things even worse for both him and the team when you need a guy like him in the lineup, even if he's not producing. He's still doing maybe some little things, but we can talk about the details, the face-offs, all those things. That's all well and good, but that's not enough when you're making almost $8 million, right? Like, you can be a great two-way player winning 55% of your face-offs if you're a third-line center making $3.75, $4 even. Like, you need more from the guy. And you wonder, like, is it like injury? Is it something like that? Because like it's still like the fact that he hasn't gelled with Pastrnak at the start of the year, I find wild. And like you wonder if like this training camp was really just a complete clusterfuck in terms of like Pastrnak
was.
Yeah, I mean like Pastrnak not being up to speed, and I don't know what's up with him, whether it's confidence. I feel like there's something bothering him. He didn't play. He didn't practice before they headed out west with an upper body injury. Feels like something's up with him. And then Lindholm missed a good amount of time during camp. I didn't see what exactly happened. Like, it wasn't anything noticeable where I think he took he had like 6 hits, but if he's just been dealing with something and that's just been bothering him the whole year as well, you'd probably feel better if he was nursing something that is hurting him as opposed to just he doesn't have it.
I was going to say, like, you almost want, I know they don't want injuries out there because other teams can target it, but it would almost be better for him, public relations wise, to be like, hey, I'm dealing with this, and this is why I'm a -3 when I'm supposed to be like this defensive stalwart of a center.
And so like the details are there, but the production's not. And like even like the power play, it's puzzling that they don't funnel pucks through the bumper at all. It's like, listen, there was a guy there at the bumper who, I don't think we're making comparisons to him, right? Even though people, I think, initially did. But that power play was pretty damn good when you had a guy in the bumper who could redirect pucks, could, fire in shots from high danger areas. And they're just going away from it. We know what it's going to be. It's going to be holding on to the puck at the blue line, passing to Marchand at the half wall, seeing if there's a seam. Oh, there's not. Like, what do you know? They're not passing it to Lindholm in the bumper. Go back up high and go to Pastrnak for a one-timer that's blocked. Like, it's puzzling just the way they're using him on the power play, but it also falls on the player that, for a guy making that much money, you desperately need more. And again, it's not like what we were even saying before the year. And shit, maybe my prediction of him having 70 points isn't looking great right now. But man,
I think I had a similar one too.
Yeah, but imagine if he had 50 points. Where, like, how much of a difference that would be? If he was like what Zacha was last year, how much of a difference that would be? Like, it is crushing. And there's a lot that's crushing this team. Run down the list: goaltending, defensive structure. Take your pick of all these forwards that aren't pulling their weight. But man, like Lindholm is a guy that, for how key he was supposed to be in this lineup, it is hurting this team in so many different areas right now.
Again, you went out and got Lindholm to be your number 1 center. You went out and got Lindholm to be an upgrade from Zacha and Coyle. He's a downgrade from where Zacha and Coyle were last year, for sure. And by the way, those guys have downgraded completely too. So like, it's not like Lindholm downgraded and Zacha and Coyle continued at the rates that they were at. But like, you even went out and got Lindholm to be like, okay, let's do this so then we can move Morgan Geekie to that third line and we can be stronger down there. And Lindholm doesn't gel with Pastrnak immediately. And maybe they need to try it again or something, but they didn't off the jump, forcing Zacha to go back to the middle and forcing Morgan Geekie back into the top 6, who has 9 points and is a -9 in 26 games. Charlie Coyle, by the way, 9 points as well, -10. And Charlie Coyle was supposed to be like a shutdown centerman. Again, I don't know what it is. And that's where, like, we might get into this on Poke the Bear. We might get into this as time goes along. Something's up. Something's up because they've changed the coach. Like, new coach, and they had a good run after, by the way. But they go out west and all these problems creep back in. What's going on? What is happening with this team? Is it internal? Are there feuds? What is it? Because that culture, man, stinks right now. And you can see it. It's affecting everybody. No one's having a good year. Hampus Lindholm was having a good year, and then he got hurt. But like, he's still got more points than a lot of guys who are in the lineup quite a bit. So like, something's up. Something stinks. But we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for today. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read all my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have you covered every step of the way this season, whether it's recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So you can read me over there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky, Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.